What's up, everyone? It has been a long time since I've checked in with you. Saturday, August 8th here. You can tell by my scruffy facial hair and my longer hair that some time has passed since I last checked in on the project, and that's because I have been hustling hard on it. Ever since I got the engine running, I've just gone into twin turbo mode, and I've been spending every little bit of free time putting it back together, and I'm super happy to show you guys the completed project. The Manhattan project is insured, it is drivable. I've put about 50 miles on it so far, besides a few little tuning and tweaking of various things. It has gone off amazingly smooth. All of the little changes I've had to make were just fine-tuning stuff that is to be expected with a project of this magnitude. If you've been following along, you know how much work has gone into this. I stopped filming most of the work I was doing on it after I got all the floor pans in. That's because a lot of it was wiring and plumbing and hanging sheet metal and everything, and that's just not exactly very engaging content. So I tried to check in every once in a while just to give you guys an update, and this is the big update. As you can see, we have a whole car here, and I've been working on it the last couple of days to kind of polish it up a bit. I got it running and driving 2 weeks ago, and I've slowly been putting some miles on it, like I said, and now I'm just doing the final touches. Stuff like getting my vent shades on, the peat mirrors, finishing out the interior with the stereo and the compass and the tissue holder and all the little stuff like that, getting all my accessories taken care of. And so today we're going to be cruising out to the Anoka County Classic Car Show that they have every Saturday. I'll cruise there, and then in the town just south of there, Coon Rapids, they have a cruise down the boulevard there as well. So I'll hit both those spots today. I'll show you a little of that when we go down there in an hour or two here. But for now, I just wanted to talk about the car a little bit and show you guys the final product. So I can't even remember where we left off, where the last time that I did any filming was, but I'm quite certain that the motor was in and the doors were on, but I don't think any of the front sheet metal was on. Maybe front fenders, but you know, the doors went on real nice and easy with the help from a couple of friends, and I was able to get them aligned to the point where they opened and closed nice, and I was surprised at how easy that was. I never have hung a door on a classic car like this, so I kind of figured it would be a bit of a nightmare. Next up, I had to modify the cross member that holds the core support for the radiator, because that holds the fenders. The fenders only mount to one part of the body at the top over there, and then they just have a rod on the bottom. And so the fender, the outer fender combined with the inner fender mounts to the core support. So the core support has to be the right distance front and back, and then it has to be the right distance up and down. So there was a lot of wiggle room there that I had to play with to fine-tune everything, and I did generally a pretty good job of it. The fenders went on, then up next was getting the inner fender kind of gravel guards on, and then it was the grill, and in that process I realized that the fenders were too close together, so I had to space them out from the core support. Once I spaced those out, I realized I had to also space them out from the body a bit further. And after that, we got the front splash pan on, front bumper, the newly re-chromed guards, the bumperettes that are reproductions, got all that in. Once all that was done, then I could go and finish the front wiring harness. with turn signals, driving lights, low beam, high beam, horn, and fog lights, which are not installed yet, which I'm not sure if I'm going to run. And so you can see that the fitment of everything is acceptable, but it's not very great. The last thing that you do is put the hood on, and the hood doesn't have a whole lot of wiggle room. It kind of wants to be in one place, and so everything kind of is dictated off of that, really. So I had to widen the fenders out even more, and even as it is now, you can see that they need to be a bit wider for the hood to kind of sink down in it properly, and the hood also has to move back. There's a decent sized gap at the door and at the cowl, but for this summer, this is as good as I need it, because I just want to put miles on it and try to expose any issues in the suspension, drivetrain, engine setup, everything like that. And so this is done for the year, and it's time just to drive it. Learned a lot putting the sheet metal on. Next time I do it, I'll be able to do it a lot better. I also have been tuning the engine a lot. I ended up rebuilding the carburetors. I got the engine rebuilt. It's a 250 cubic inch up in northern Minnesota, and it came with the Clifford dual carb setup with Weber's, and the carburetors had just kind of sat out in the open, spider webs in it and stuff like that. So I got the kits to rebuild them and rebuilt them, and the first time I tried to start the engine, it started right up, and then I realized it was running too rich, so I tuned everything, and I had the timing set, but it was set way too retarded, so I advanced it, and then I got the equipment to synchronize the carburetors and retimed it, so I've fiddled with the engine quite a lot, and it's as good as I can get it right now, I believe. The front carburetor has one little issue that the only way to fix it is to take the carburetor off and take it back apart. The throttle blade for the secondary isn't sealing as good as the throttle blade for the back carburetor, so that's just pulling a little more vacuum at idle. But it does idle really nice. I have the choke hooked up to the back carburetor, so I can choke it, get it to start when it gets a little colder and everything. Everything's been working good as far as the cooling system. I built a really nice fan shroud to shroud the engine-driven fan, and the tubes that I welded to the intake manifold to heat it, everything there has been running perfectly. So I'm really happy with everything in the engine bay. I really struggled with the transmission. It has a McLeod hydraulic throwout bearing in there, and that calls for a 3/4 inch minimum bore diameter on the clutch master cylinder, and I had a smaller one laying around that I had put on there, and so the clutch was not disengaging. So I bought a 3/4 inch one. Clutch still wasn't engaging. Went up to 1 inch, and the clutch was just barely disengaging. And so I ended up splitting the engine from the transmission and putting another shim behind the hydraulic throwout bearing. You want around a 1/16 inch air gap between that bearing surface and the fingers on the clutch plate, or on the pressure plate. And I had just more than a 1/16 inch, and so I didn't want to put that other shim in there, which is a 1/16 inch, because I didn't want the bearing to be too close to the fingers. And so I ended up putting that shim in there anyways, and that solved the problem. So now the clutch is working really good. The brakes, I had a little issue with those. The pedal just went all the way to the floor, and I actually had to adjust the little rod in the booster. The air gap between that and the piston in the brake master cylinder was quite a bit larger, almost 10 times larger than it was supposed to be. That's why the 2/3 of the brake pedal did nothing And so once I adjusted that, the brakes have felt really good. Air suspension system, I've really been messing with that quite a bit and struggling with it. When I first got it set up, since it had been on and off so many times, I had 2 of the sensors installed wrong, and so they were not reading correctly. And so I finally figured that out and switched those around. Then the front sensors had too much of a range of motion. They have, the arms on the sensors have 3 holes in them, and I had cut the front hole off, so I was on the second hole. So I had to get new arms and then go back to the 3 holes so that the lever arm is longer, and that solved that. But then once I got all the airlift performance stuff figured out as far as that goes, I set my ride heights, and the car was just not consistent. It was, well, I guess it was consistent, but it was consistently not level. It was always lower on the right side, on the passenger side than the driver's side. And so I just switched it over from the height sensors to pressure, and that way I was able to fine tune the pressure and get the car level like that. And I ran it like that for the last couple weeks, but finally I got the car back up on jack stands, and what I did was mess with the rod length of each sensor until the front left, front right at the same ride height when the car's level. We're measuring the same, and I did that with the rear as well. In the airlift performance controller, there is a sensor height tool that shows you where in the range they are, so you can fine tune it. So once I did that, the car is a lot better. Once it airs further up, it gets a little bit worse because side to side, the rods are a little bit different length, so that at this ride height and the ride height up from here, they're equal. So I'm gonna have to do some fine tuning of that this winter, maybe move one of the sensors up or down just a tiny bit, side to side, to make sure that throughout the same, to make sure throughout the whole range of motion, they're showing the same. And I'll have to do that for the rear as well. So little stuff like that, but it's working really good now. The car lays out really nicely. I can drive it at this ride height right here. This is my lowest setting, and then I have one that's about 1 inch up from here, and then I have one that's about 3 inches up from here for getting into and out of driveways, parking lots, or if it's a really rough road. The steering in this thing feels amazing. It's manual steering and stock steering wheel, stock column that I just used a column saver to adapt to the 3/4 inch shaft steering rod down to the Mustang 2 rack. And the steering feels absolutely amazing. Real happy that I didn't do power steering. It actually had a power steering rack when I got it, and I still have that rack, but I switched over to a manual because I just knew that was the way to go. The interior is real nice now. I have the original bench seat. The fabric's in surprisingly good condition, all things considered. I'm not going to be using that forever. I'll be redoing the interior. The interior from the bench seat forward is mostly complete. There's no headliner, there's no carpet, but the door panels are in. The dash is complete, everything like that. Everything works as it should, turn signals, brake lights. The radio doesn't work, it's just a dummy radio, but I wanted to fill the hole there instead of just having an open hole. The only gauge that isn't working right now is the water temp gauge, so I'll have to get a new probe for that, or probably just a whole new gauge. But the car has been running nice and cool. I have a infrared thermometer that I can use to actually monitor the temperature of the radiator and the inlet hose and the outlet hose. And I also use that to help tune the carburetors to figure out you know, if they were producing the same amount of heat in the exhaust manifolds. So that was helpful. Yeah, it's been amazing having this thing come together here over the last month. Been putting tons of hours into it. I come out here and I open the garage door here and I look at it and I still just can't believe that it's mine. And this is just stage 1 of probably 4 or 5 stages, and I'm super happy with it already. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate all you guys watching, and I hope you like the car.
appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, 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 oh,
does, but I don't have any factory air, but I don't have one alcohol. I put the motor, another motor in here. I didn't get that done. Among everything else to get done. I gotta
Love the cat.
Up here. Yeah, cool, man, huh?
you.
You got some big testicles to pull this off, bro.